with this just absolutely amazing story that I found over at, actually I didn't, I saw it on multiple other websites, over the last couple of days. I mentioned it briefly yesterday. Actually dug into the study yesterday afternoon at MIT Technology Review, which is a thing, it's a magazine or a website. And there's this amazing article, and embedded in the article is our actual documents laying this stuff out, that this moment that we're having right now in the United States of being essentially torn apart on what appears to be multiple levels. We had a guy call in yesterday and talk about how his brother is convinced that the COVID shot is some deep state conspiracy, something. He wasn't certain, I'm not certain exactly what his brother's objection was, but he was an anti-vaxxer. And so he caught COVID, he gave it to their mother, mom died. Right? This story is happening a couple thousand times a day, every day, right now in the United States of America. It's destroying families. It's creating grief and pain, and that's just the deaths. As we reported yesterday, 37% of people who have symptomatic COVID still have symptoms 6 months later. Long COVID is a thing. So why is this being promoted? This whole idea of don't trust the vaccine. Why is that being promoted? Why is right-wing vigilantism being promoted? Where is this whole hysteria about critical race theory? Oh, they're showing, where right-wingers with guns are showing up at school boards and things. How is this stuff being driven on social media? Well, it turns out, as I write in my piece today over at HartmannReport.com, this isn't the first time that our country has been torn apart by hustlers selling us a bill of goods. Joe McCarthy did this in the 1950s when I was a little tiny kid, basically saying, I have in my hand a list of communists who've infiltrated the State Department and the Army. He had just made that up, right? Roy Cohn came up with this scheme. Roy Cohn, who was Donald Trump's lawyer, also came up with this scheme to help turn Joe McCarthy into one of the most famous politicians in America, and it worked, but it was a complete lie. It destroyed thousands of lives. But that was a homegrown program. I mean, McCarthy was blaming it on the Soviet Union, but it was Joe McCarthy. It was out of America. So what happened? What's happening now? I mean, this appears to be something that is happening all across the country. Well, this Karen Howe at the MIT Technology Review received apparently a leaked copy of this internal Facebook document from October of 2019, just a little short of 2 years ago, which found that there are around 15,000 different Facebook refers to them as pages. You might think of them as groups or as sites. But in any case, internally, Facebook refers to them as pages that are run by foreign troll farms. The largest Christian American page on Facebook, 20 times larger than the next largest, is run by a foreign troll farm in a former Soviet Union country. These are, it's incredible. The largest African American page on Facebook, 3 times larger than the next largest, reaching 30 million users every month. The Christian one is reaching 75 million users every month. Again, run by a troll farm out of Macedonia. The second largest Native American page on Facebook, reaching 400,000 users. The 5th largest women's page on Facebook, reaching 60 million US users every month, is run by a troll farm out of the former Soviet Union. What the hell is going on here? It turns out, in all probability, and although Facebook doesn't, in this leaked report from Facebook, which is over on the Technology Review, the MIT Technology Review article, which I linked to in my article, so you can find it if you're looking for it. It's over at HartmannReport.com. They don't speculate about political motives, but what they do point out is that, I believe that they pointed out in there. If they don't, it's fairly obvious that, and I believe that the MIT Technology Review points it out, that most of these sites that are run by these foreign troll farms are linking to websites that they own that look like they are news sites or science sites, in the case of phony COVID science, that are covered with advertising. So they're making money doing this. It's not just, hey, let's destroy America. In fact, it might not even at all be, hey, let's destroy America. It's just, hey, let's use social media's algorithms, let's milk them to make millions of dollars. I mean, this is amazing. When this report was written in October of 2019, of the top 20 American Christian sites on Facebook, of the top 20, 19 were run by foreign troll farms. Of the top 15 African American sites, 10 of them were run by foreign troll farms, including the one that sat at number 1. Now, we know that in 2016, Russian troll farms and probably other countries as well, Saudi, maybe UAE, other troll farms, were working to get Donald Trump elected, right? I mean, the Mueller report laid that one out. That's, clearly political motive. But now we've got people protesting at hospitals, assaulting election officials, showing up in force to intimidate local school boards. And the one thing that they all seem to have in common is that this is all being driven by social media. And by the way, there's even an older picture. This is a year ago, in 2020, in the late summer of 2020. I wrote about this, and we talked about this at the time. This was a year and a half ago. In Klamath Falls, a little town just down the road from us, 200 locals showed up downtown one Sunday night, with guns, baseball bats, and whatever weapons they could find, hammers, chainsaws, to fight off what they were convinced were going to be busloads of black Antifa people, marauders, that Jewish billionaire George Soros was paying to put on buses in Portland and send into their little white town. That was in Klamath Falls. But it wasn't just in Klamath Falls, Oregon. It turns out they were happening all over the country. That week, in Falls, Washington, frightened white people brought out chainsaws and cut down trees to block roads leading into their town. In South Bend, Indiana, the police were overwhelmed by 911 calls from frightened white people who'd read that on social media that the Antifa buses from George Soros filled with black people were arriving any minute now in South Bend, Indiana. In rural Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, the same thing was happening. The same thing was happening in Danville, California, and in Jacksonville, Florida. All the same weekend. And it was all just a fiction. Just like the COVID, the COVID fantasies about, the vaccines are filled with baby parts, or they don't work, or they are fiction. But this nationwide campaign in hundreds of social media groups turned thousands of angry and well-armed white Americans out into the streets with extraordinarily similar stories all across the country, all at the same time. And a year later now, they're putting angry mobs in front of the homes of state election officials, school board members, and attacking healthcare workers. I've got some questions, and I don't think we have any clear answers here. I mean, the MIT Technology Review report, which I linked to in my piece at Hartmann Report, talks about, it kind of identifies where this is coming from, and that links to the Facebook. Facebook discovered this a couple of years ago. Some of them are still running, by the way, these sites on Facebook. But is this just a bunch of foreign hustlers trying to make a buck? Being, fueled by Facebook's algorithms? Is that all that's going on here? Or are we still under assault like we were in 2016 during the election that brought Donald Trump to power? Are we still under assault from foreign governments or overseas oligarchs who want to see America in turmoil for a whole variety of reasons? The things that will benefit them and hurt us, particularly hurt democracy. Are they still driving this train? Is it both? I mean, don't we as Americans deserve to know how this whole thing is being orchestrated when it so clearly appears to be being orchestrated. Excuse me. I mean, we're playing whack-a-mole trying to knock down this stuff. But I think Congress needs to act. I think that we need to have a serious look into what's going on here, because we're not getting it. And this is very concerning and very troubling. By the way, it looks like Congress is going to keep the doors open. We're not going to have a government shutdown. We'll know at the end of the day, but it looks like we're not going to have a government shutdown. But that doesn't mean that the next year has been funded. It doesn't mean that the debt ceiling has been raised. It just means that they're going to fund the government for a few months until December. December 3rd, I think, is the date that we're talking about. So we can have this fight all over again right after the election. A year right as the 2022 election cycle begins.